Okay. Should film photos look like film? It's a weird question, and maybe one that needs rewording, but for now, it's what I'm going with. Essentially, I'm thinking about this topic for a while now, and the reason is that I see different results and different preferences online. I would maybe separate film shooters that I see into two categories: crisp and messy. Maybe these aren't the right names to use, but I'm not like a namer or anything. Crisp film shooters are those who emphasize gear and sharp lenses, and their photos would fit neatly into a slideshow of digital photographs. Essentially, the fact that they shot the photo on film isn't the focal point, and maybe they go out of their way to take sharp photos with minimal grain. On the other hand, you have messy film shooters, and I'm using the term messy in an aesthetic way, not in a value judgment way. I don't mean to imply that one style is better than the other. Here we have folks who embrace heavy and visible grain, light leaks, bright flash at a birthday party, motion blur, soft focus, essentially the quote-unquote film look. If you Google film look right now, do you know how many YouTube videos and articles you'll find that'll tell you how to modify your digital photos to give you the film look? It honestly feels like an epidemic. I was talking with a friend of mine recently about the prevalence of what I like to call film as novelty. What this means is that it's not enough to put in the caption that something was shot on film. It has to look like it was shot on film. The grain needs to be prominent. There needs to be a greenish color cast. The subject matter needs to be nostalgic and vibey. And I don't know, all this got me thinking about the ways in which I shoot film and the reasons why I shoot film. And the conclusion that I came to is that I find that I land somewhere closer to the crisp end of the spectrum. I'm just not entirely attracted to the messy look. And I wonder where that desire stems from. Obviously nostalgia, but I just kind of feel like the conversation tends to end there. Like, what do we mean when we say that? Because in my mind, it seems a little misguided. I could be wrong, but before we had digital cameras and all anyone used was film, people didn't go out of their way to take photos, for lack of a better term. I think that generally, among photographers, the goal was something more crisp, unless the subject matter called for messiness. It's a bit of an intriguing paradox, the assumption that nostalgia should equal diminished quality in photography. And I don't mean quality on the emotional or subtextual wow factor of a photograph. I mean technically. As photographers, we've been conditioned to associate sharpness, clarity, and perfection with high quality. And there's no denying that technological advancements have allowed us to achieve breathtaking levels of detail in modern photography. However, it's important to remember that the past holds its own trove of beautiful, crisp images. If we flip through the archives of early film photography, we'll find countless examples of stunningly composed and expertly captured shots. I'm thinking of photographers like Erwin Blumenfeld and Horst B. Horst, and yeah, these are two examples of commercial studio photographers. But their photographs evoke the time that they were made, and they also look like they could have been made today. In my opinion, they are paradoxically of their time and are timeless. They evoke nostalgia and contemporary appeal. And I would consider them to be pretty crisp photographers. On the other end of the spectrum, take a photographer like Robert Mapplethorpe, at least his early work before he got into beautiful celebrity portraits and flowers and stuff. His work was pretty messy, utilizing natural lights or lack thereof and things like Polaroids. I'm also deliberately leaving out of the conversation photographers who are more so photojournalists or documentarians like Gordon Parks or Danny Lyon. How about Nobuyoshi Araki as an example of the messy look? There's a carefree spirit to his images that he just pointed the camera and hit the shutter. Again, mostly his early work before all that rope bondage stuff. Or Daido Moriyama. He's another one. He's a great example. Anyway, let me get back on track here. Nowadays, I notice that there are these two camps. And maybe there are more than two. But these two camps transcend genre pretty much. You have still life, lifestyle, architecture, nature photographers who are crisp and clean like William Christenberry and Joel Sternfeld and Ansel Adams. And on the other hand, you have people like the ever-divisive William Eggleston. So why then do many of us gravitate toward what might be labeled as the amateurish photography of yesteryear? It's a question worth pondering, I think. But also, as many of you have pointed out, I'm a bit of an overthinker. And I'm okay with that. One factor could be the unique visual character that these images carry. The imperfections, the grain, the light leaks, the occasional soft focus create a distinct ambiance that's hard to replicate with modern technology. But you see, in our pursuit of that aesthetic, we might sometimes overlook the technical proficiency that was present in the works of photographers who preceded the digital age. I guess it also just rubs me the wrong way when we associate the film look or film photography with the word imperfection. Like, how many times have you heard embrace the imperfection? I think it's horse. I think it's a concept that has embedded itself in our psyche at this point, and it's frankly detrimental. I mean, it's a good thing because humans, especially younger generations, like to stand out. And there's a certain appeal to going against the grain. It's in the nature of the young to rebel against what's common. So imperfection in photography is seen as this unicorn, this splash of color in a drab, monochrome 1984 existence. That's a theory anyway. So to go back to the original question, should film photos look like film? The cynic in me looks at something like the recent Lomo Color 92 and gets upset, if only because it perpetuates a stereotype. The stereotype is that the film look is one that is overtly flashy and vocal about its presence. It says, "Look at me, I was shot on film." Personally, that isn't why I shoot film. And I know many of you watching my channel feel that way too. But I hope that this doesn't turn into an echo chamber, because I'd absolutely love to hear from those of you on the other end of the spectrum over on the messy side. I don't really have much of a conclusion for this video, more so just some food for thought. At the end of the day, photography is inherently subjective, and every photographer brings a unique perspective to the art form. The preference for crisp or messy aesthetics depends on personal style, intent, and the stories that you wish to convey. There's no single right or wrong way to approach the film look. But you could say that the pervasive desire to infuse digital imagery with the film look speaks to a yearning for authenticity in an increasingly digital and curated world. You could say that. I'm not saying you should. Younger generations may be drawn to the film look as an act of rebellion against the hyper-polished imagery that saturates their digital lives. In a society that values uniqueness and individualism, embracing imperfection becomes a form of self-expression that defies the norms of the digital age. Again, you could say that. I'm not saying you should. But when that act of self-expression becomes, in a manner of speaking, mainstream, what are you left with? What I mean by that is when you have major brands embracing the film look in their advertising campaigns, and every Tom, Dick, and Jane on the block is Googling how to get the film look under their child's birthday party photos, what is it saying about our values? What is it saying about our taste or about our preferences? Is achieving the film look indicative of the feeling of shooting on film? Does it really make you feel anything? Like, is nostalgia a real feeling? Or just something that we say to fill the space between silences? When you shoot film, are you doing so just to capture a look? I suspect the answer is no. And yet,